this is Jessie, and this is my channel, The Caffeinated Bookworm. So, National Poetry Month, April is over, so for the foreseeable future, I'm going to be doing a series on the weaponry of literature, mainly science fiction and fantasy lit. We're going to be starting with my favorite series, The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, which is also one of my favorite books, and going over the weapons from those. We're going to start with something that wasn't, I don't believe it was mentioned in the movies. And those are the daggers that the hobbits use. So we're talking about Samwise, Merry, Pippin, and Frodo. And those are barrow-blades that were forged in Arnor, or the Northern Kingdom, in the Third Age. And although they're not mentioned too much in the movies, they actually play a significant part in the books. And so Merry actually used his to stab the Witch King of Angmar, and this took place in Pelennor Fields. He stabs him in the knee, and this allows Eowyn to come in and stab him in the head. And so that was a very important part. Frodo also had a barrow blade, but he broke his fighting a Nazgul. And that was, I can't remember where that was, but after he destroys his, or he breaks his, he's given Sting by Bilbo. Now, Sting is a sword that was used by Bilbo and is found in a troll hoard in the Hobbit book. And at the same time that he found Sting, he also found the Orcrist and Glamdring, which Gandalf claimed as his own. Now, the movies didn't mention this either, but all three of those, not just Sting, all three of those burned with a blue or white fire when they were near orcs or Balrogs. And so that's something that they left out of the movies. And if I understood it correctly, they left it out of the movies because they thought it was going to be confusing for the audience to differentiate between Sting and Glamdring and the Orcrist. Glamdring means the foe hammer. In the movies, they put an inscription on Sting, but this is not something that was found in the books. That's something that they added for the movies alone. And then Glamdring, that means foe hammer. And these swords, they were elven forged in Gondolin. And then Orcrist means goblin cleaver, and that one was given to Thorin Oakenshield. The next one is not standard issue weapon, but I think it definitely bears mentioning, and that's the Grond. And you know what I'm talking about. This is that huge wolf head battering ram that's used to bring down the gates of Minas Tirith. And then the next two swords that I'm going to mention are actually, one, they have a kind of Ship of Theseus conundrum thing going on, and that is Narsil, which means fire and white light, and is meant to make reference to the sun and the moon. And this sword was broken when Elendil fell on it fighting Sauron, and then his son Isildur, he picks up, and you'll remember this from the movie very clearly probably, he picks up the jagged shard, or the remainder of the sword with the handle, and he cuts the ring off of Sauron, he cuts the finger off of Sauron, the one with the one ring on it. Years later, this same sword is reforged in Rivendell into Anduril, and Boromir has a dream that his brother Faramir tells him that he needs to go find the broken sword, and so Boromir originally thinks that it's his right to have the sword, but it ends up being used as a kind of confirmation of kingship for Aragorn, and Aragorn ends up taking the reforged Narsil or Anduril. I'm not going to go into the knives of Legolas, the two that he pulls out from behind his back too much, because I don't really remember those in the books. And for the most part, the elves used bows. And so, with the exception of Thranduil, who had a broadsword, which I have a very mini replica of, but it's still really cool. I think I definitely mentioned that before because I had to show you when I first got it. And then, of course, the dwarves used mostly axes and warhammers. Um, in the movies, that there were also, or sorry, in the books, there were also um, weapons that didn't make it into the movies, such as the swords that were forged from meteors by the dark elf Eel, and those were Anglachel and Anguirel. And then there were weapons in the movies that weren't in the books, like those swords that Legolas used. And I'll have to go back and reread it. I really don't remember the swords. I don't remember Legolas using the swords in the books. But they had Hadhafang, which was wielded by Arwen in the movies, and then there were the Lhang swords, which were used by the elven masses in the movies. So these there's more. There's probably a lot more that I'm forgetting. So much for watching. Like and subscribe below.